What's going on, Soul Tribe? I salute the divinity in you, and welcome to the Chariot Friends. Justin here, and how you feeling? The moon's in Virgo. I really do enjoy the moon in Virgo, and I think that what we're going to get into today is really figuring out the how to tap into the highest qualities of ourselves, how to really refine our energies and to embody that greatest vision of yourself. And I think Virgo really has a strong analytical discerning mind to do that as well, and the know-how or the skills to get into those to that energy. So we'll talk about all that here in a moment. I'll find better words for that here. But until then, if you're new here, again, my name is Justin. And know that when you're coming across this video, you're in sync with the moon, and who doesn't love that? But this is also a place for you if you happen to have Cancer in your placements, Sun, Moon, Rising, maybe Mercury, wherever. This one's for you. And I do tarot cards, Fred, based off that lovely luminary, the good old moon. And I'll talk about what sign it's in, what phase it's in, and when it's going void of course. Just all them lunar shenanigans. And just so you're all aware, this is a general reading, not a one-to-one. So take what fits into your story, discard the rest, and everything will be dope. Now, let's jump into it. Cause yes, this is really a chill. I prefer or I don't mind Moon and Virgos because this is like a lighter time in my chart. It's only like forming a few aspects, which sometimes you need that kind of quieter time sometimes. But before we jump into that, depending on when you're watching this, Happy Moon Day. The moon is associated with Mondays, and I find that moon days can really be a great time for just tuning into what's going on with you. The moon deals with not just the emotions, but the things that we're feeling, the kind of involuntary movements of the body. So this is a great time to just see how you're doing, see how you've been moving through these energies for however long. And I find that really, there can be this like tendency I notice with moon days where it's just like, ugh, moon day. But that's the pace. Like that gets sunk into the body and it's almost like ingrained in the culture. And let's break out of that. Let's celebrate a moon day. I was born on a moon day. Never mind. But yes, those are just some things. But I think definitely though, again, this could be a great time for doing some nurturing things for yourself as well to take care of, because that's what the moon's about. Really kind of tuning into what helps you to feel at your best. Now, another way that I like working with these planetary days and hours is thinking about my relationship with the moon, and not just where I have it at natally. How do I deal with like lunar transits, and also how do I deal with when planets are aspecting my natal moon? Those can be some really great. Actually, Venus just got done forming a little sextile with my moon not too long ago, but these can be some really great insights for that. Working with the lunar return, oh, lovely. I'm in a relationship one right now, and you know what, putting intentions like that, it makes things smooth. So yeah, just something to really kind of tune in there. There's definitely some, and you get one once a month. So look at that. So that's something that's really nice with the moon. And going to talking about the lunar transits real quick, yeah, the moon can move really fast. So and sometimes they form aspects of really obscure hours. But I find that just in general, like how I was observing like Virgo, there's I is going to usually it like forms a trine with my midheaven, sextiles my sun and my north node, trines the south node, and then that's usually about it. Oh, and then squares my moon. So there's that little bit. So there's like a little bit of activity, but it's like kind of early on. It's spread out enough that it's like I can just kind of ease through the moon in Virgo. So that could be a great way. Do you have a lot of mutable placements? Because maybe this is a more active one for you if you have like Sag, Pisces, or Gemini. So tune into that. Really, really great insights there. But let's keep the lunar shenanigans going. Because on the 5th of May, the moon is going to enter into Virgo at about 12:40 p.m. and that's going to be Pacific time. And we're in the waning gibbous phase. And now we're really starting to pick up some motion with that waning, or excuse me, with that waxing gibbous. We're starting to pull, to get some momentum there. Whatever it is that you've been working on, we taken action during the during the last quarter now, or during the first quarter. I'm ready to be in the waning quarter already, apparently. But we're taking the actions that you took from that first quarter, and now we're just making any sort of adjustments. This is like now we got some information, some feedback, and now we can make any sort of like tweaks and things, which I find is great for Virgo. Because when you think about Virgo energy, they're the mutable earth sign, they're receptive or yin in nature, and they're ruled by Mercury. And that's one thing that I find with Virgo is that they do have a very strong mental energy, being Mercury ruled, that they know how to really work with the material. And so this would be if you have any sort of like, let's say if you were working on your finances, maybe you were trying to save up for this thing, and then you realize, you know what, why am I not getting as much resources I want to? And it's like, oh, you know what, maybe because it's going into this thing, or I have resources bleeding into here. Maybe there's certain subscriptions that I haven't canceled, or maybe there's some that I don't need altogether. That's where I find the practical mind of Virgo really comes in handy. Virgo is an interesting sign too, because it's like now we're getting towards that energy of like the harvest, and so we're deciding like what stuff is coming with us and what we're throwing, and then we're weighing the scales to Libra, and then we're throwing it away with Scorpio. So this would be a great time if you're needing to make any sort of adjustments to your routine, your rituals, to whatever it is that you're working on. Maybe this is something in relationships. Maybe you thought, oh, everybody seems to be doing this, but you know what? Everyone has me in common. So what can I do to maybe show up a little bit differently? That might be something too that, depending on where this may be happening for you, where this lunation happened for you. So again, that's some ways that I would definitely work with this Virgo energy. And I find that Virgo too, we're going to really start to get, because I think that's about all I want to talk about on that lunation. But let's go ahead and get into your general energy of the day, because I think that's really going to really help accentuate the powers of Virgo. Because you got hexagram 7 here, which is the army, and no changing lines on this one here. So we're just going to work with the straight hexagram. And if you want to have a little more information on that to kind of reflect on these hexagrams, down in the description box I have one link for a website that I find pretty useful. This is where I get all my kanji from. But they have some pretty good definitions for that. But there are all sorts of resources that can help you to understand and go as deep as you want to with this thing. But this is earth over water here. So I'll talk about a lot of, again, receptive energy that we're working with. But the changing line, the hexagram for this is auspicious for the great personage. No troubles. And yeah, absolutely. When you're tuning into that, because a great personage, this is like your higher self. This is, spirit. This is talking to or tapping into, that embodiment, that ideal version of you. What is that? This is a great time for tapping into that, for whatever guidance that you're looking for right now. Because sometimes I find maybe with the Virgo energies that in trying to maybe meet that personage, for example, there's maybe a harshness that comes with Virgo, very overly critical of oneself. And this is the time for the mind to get out of the way and to make space for spirit. Because spirit loves you where you're at. You don't have to, you have to try, but, but I find that we are a lot harsher on ourselves, and I find that our higher selves and things can be. Now, that's not to say that higher self isn't going to call you out when when there's shenanigans afoot. But I do think that this can be one where it's like, okay, because Virgo has been associated with like routines, but I like to do a different R word with them, which is the rituals. And it's just like, okay, when I'm envisioning this greater version of myself, the idealized version of me, what am I doing every day in order for that to happen? What sort of thing, and then we're getting to that Virgo discernment. Maybe if I'm going to become maybe like a doctor, for example, maybe sitting around on the couch and watching TV all day, that might not help me get to that. Maybe sometimes when I need to take a break, but there are other times where I may have to, really kind of put in the work there. I may have to take a couple hours. Maybe instead of watching just like mindless TV, maybe I'm watching some medical things. I used to watch a lot of medical shows growing up. So maybe you do it like that. So that way, at least you're getting familiar with the lingo. There are easy ways that you can incorporate these sort of practices in your everyday that doesn't really have to throw everything off, or it doesn't have to feel so hard or so unattainable. So yeah, this is just, this one I feel like is really, pretty straightforward on this one. And when you're thinking about the army, this is just getting all of your, just kind of like metaphorical troops in order, seeing where the mind's going, seeing where things are at, seeing even like the people that are around you, and just what sort of needs to be adjusted in order to make these things come together here. But we're going to go ahead and move on over into the tarot here. Now, before I get into this thing, a couple things with this reading. These readings that I do, they're not gender-specific readings, so apply these energies to people as they make sense for your situations. And I'm going to be talking about different topics, whether that be finances, this could be health, this could deal with like legal advice, romance, but this is by no means professional advice. Talk to your financial advisors, your doctors, your healers, your lawyers, your therapists, things along those lines. I'm a huge proponent for that. And normally I would get a clarifier with the if we had changing lines, but considering that this one's pretty locked into place here, I'm gonna alternate. And that's how we're gonna do it. We're gonna alternate between these cards here. So let's go ahead and get into your first card, which talks about any sort of like short-term money matters or things along those lines. Let's see, and how we're spending the resource, and that can be your time too. So let's see what's going on with that. Oh, yeah, all right. Time to put that money to work. You got the Three of Pentacles here. And you know what? This could be where, because this is a very hard working card. This is a card of really kind of putting your work on display here. So I would think this could be, if you have been investing your time in things along those lines, this could be a time to really kind of showcase what you've been, to really kind of show what you've been putting out there. Look at these people looking at your great work there. But I also think too, just speaking of like when I mentioned like how this could be how you're spending your time, when you're talking with that kind of, consulting with spirit, it's just like, have I been putting in the work? Are there some other ways that maybe I can invest in myself a little bit further, that I can make the most of my resources? They can make your money work for you. I would, considering that the Pentacles deal with money, and resources and things, this would be something where if you are thinking about a financial thing, again, talking with a financial advisor, maybe you're wanting someone to kind of help, maybe even like a coach or something, someone to kind of help you manage your time as well there. That might be something to do there, but yeah, I think that's all I got for you on that one there. A little something to think about. But let's go ahead. Oh, I got one more little hit. Just kind of question of just like, where is, because your time is precious, your money's precious, your resources, your possessions and things. It's just like, where are you putting your hard-earned work? Where is that going to? What is the purpose of what you're of just like where you're investing things? That's just something else that's coming up there. But let's go ahead and get into your next card here, which talks about any sort of like medical matters or things along those lines. Let's see how the body's doing. Oh, okay. All right, so you got the Lovers here in reverse. Another one of Mercury's rule signs here. This is Gemini energy here. Now with the Lovers in reverse, I would say that this is, again, kind of looking at the choices that you've been making and because the Lovers is a choice card, and it's looking at the consequences of maybe some of the choices that you've been making. Maybe you've noticed that the foods that you've been eating haven't been working out there. Maybe you find that maybe it's almost like, how do I want to put this? It's almost like, this, like looking at the thing, let's say that if we've been eating a lot of like processed food, a lot of like things with just like artificial thing, like sort of like quick things, it's just like, has that really been helping the body out here? That's just one thing that's coming through, a real kind of basic thing. But I also think that there's this decision, maybe there's a choice that's needing to be made about Then this is getting a little deeper. This is getting, maybe we're dealing with a family member. This, I just got like hospice in my head, so that might be something that maybe we're possibly dealing with, and we're not wanting to deal with having to make a kind of heavier choice here, possibly. So that might be something where you might wanting to look for a little bit of guidance through this. I even got like, I'm thinking of like maybe working with like a doula, maybe this is dealing with like working with a death doula possibly here, because these are just one of the natural phases of life. I think that sometimes it can be, it is a tougher topic, but it can be so taboo sometimes that we don't deal with it, and then when it happens, then we're forced to deal with it. And I think that this is something where this is like thinking about like, can you make more of an active choice in this thing? And even going back to the Three of Pentacles, the work that's going to have to be put into it, getting things in order, getting, any sort of affairs, whatever that's looking like, so that's another kind of thing to consider. I'm just getting a little hit here. Interestingly enough, both my stepfather and I have Leo risings, and we both are Saturn was going through our 8th house, and my stepfather's mom had passed not too long ago. And when I was kind of talking with him about it, it's like it's a different experience, and there's like things that you never, it's not something that you'll really can get any sort of like, it's like until you've experienced it, it's kind of hard to really kind of prepare for what that's going to look like. You can think what's going to how you're going to deal with it, but it's when you're in the moment, that's when things really kind of showcase there. But I don't think that it just means that it's just going to always be just a heavy thing, just, oh my goodness. If anything, like he was, I remember us talking about this, and it was just like, this was something where, now, they're not suffering anymore. They're not, stuck in the body going through the, just like kind of just going through the motions, just like not really having an experience anymore. So that's just something that comes with it. I definitely take that as that resonates, and that might be something too where maybe if you haven't been open to, because Gemini's, can deal about with communication, that mutable air, maybe talking with the therapist, or again someone who gets in that line, or who knows how to the work that comes into that. So that's just an energy if that happens to resonate with you. Now let's go ahead and get into your third card here, which talks about any sort of like legal matters or kind of social affairs and things like that. All right, so you got the Ace of Cups here. And that's interesting. This got me, I'm just thinking about your cups flowing over with this ace, and maybe there's something here where, especially in like the social affairs, this could be a great time to just kind of be around people, to kind of be in the fields, be around people that you love, do something that maybe you're celebrating with possibly here. That's just one aspect that's going through. That's interesting. I've even got social affairs. I'm even getting like I'm visualizing a church. It doesn't have to be that, but something where there's this idea maybe of communion, just because this dove is kind of bringing down this, what looks like, could look like the wafer, for when you're going through like the, oh no, the words, it'll come to me in a minute. What is that called? When you receive the wafer and the wine. Yeah, I know you're telling me it right now. So it'll come through. But the offering, that's not it. But with this Ace of Cups here, I think that especially if you have been maybe dealing with maybe having some heavier choices that you deal with, being around some people who can maybe help you move through those emotions possibly here. That's just one thing that's kind of coming through. Now, when I'm thinking about kind of the legal matters, this is giving me more so like maybe we're getting ready to sign some kind of contract here, and we're getting ready to celebrate. This could be like maybe a marriage possibly here. We'll find out maybe a little bit more when we get into the next card here. But the aces are the roots of an energy here. And that might be something too, just thinking about that. When we're dealing maybe with some sort of like legal matters or things that looking at especially if there's maybe any sort of like, any energies that are overflowing. I'm just especially getting even like some sort of like anger or things along those lines. Because in reverse, I would think there's some sort of repression, or maybe even the cup is just like flown over. It's just like spilled. But this to me is just like looking at the roots of something and seeing where you're initiating from. I'm even getting like the vision of like the Cancer glyph, and Cancer is the initiator of emotions. So I would just pay attention to a little bit something there, being mindful of just some sort of like reactive energies or things along those lines. Maybe we have to. There's a decision that's needed to be made that we may not be totally happy about, but I think that it opens up for something new to kind of flow in there. So, very interesting. But let's go ahead and get into your next card, which talks about any sort of like romantic matters or marriage and things along those lines. Let's see what's going on in the love life. Oh, speaking of Cancer, you got the Chariot here. So when with the Chariot, this to me, especially kind of going with the Ace of Cups, maybe with that social affairs, there might be an opportunity where maybe you happen to meet someone. You're going to travel to an event and then happen to come across someone. You eyeing someone from across the room. Whatever that might be. Maybe this was one. Maybe that's why we're going to church. Maybe you happen to find someone there. But again, take that as that resonates. But it just seems like that this would be maybe even especially if you've been in this place where maybe you've been working hard with this, with going back to that Three of Pentacles. Maybe you've been accumulating, really been kind of just like getting some additional resources, getting something like that, and haven't really had a time for maybe like love and things like that. So this might be a time where it's time to put yourself out there. Maybe go on a date, or maybe create some sort of dating profile. It's been a minute since I've been in the dating game, but whatever we're doing now. But I think that there could be a chance here for some movement, possibly for some growth there. But I'm even getting to, if you are in a relationship, the Chariot kind of asks like, where are we going? Where is this thing? And not in like this is not like a negative way of like, what are you doing? But more so just like, hey, I've been thinking about maybe this one thing that I want to start up. I want to create some sort of new passion, some sort of maybe that Ace of Cups is you're getting ready to sign maybe some sort of like, maybe you want to do like a patent for something, or maybe you want to do like an LLC. You're really kind of tapping into that heart's desire, really kind of wanting to feel this sense of fulfillment. And that's going to change the dynamic of the relationship and where things are going and how we're going to be operating. So I'm just thinking in like the Rider-Waite, how the Chariot has the two sphinxes that are pulling the Chariot. And so it's just making sure that however we're pulling this thing, that we're not pulling, going different directions and potentially ripping the Chariot apart. But yeah, just something I think to kind of meditate on there. Okay, and you know what? I'm even getting to going back kind of to your hexagram here. I'm just thinking about the great personage, and I think that this could be too. You have that relationship with you in spirit. Where is that going? Where do you feel your intuition maybe kind of leading you there too? Again, maybe there's this opportunity here with this, something that may seem, it starts off short term, but then something that grows over time here. So that might even be something there too with that Chariot that's coming through there. And it's like I'm being called to the lovers, where it's like if this choice is made, that it would even bring about maybe even a better sense of how you're feeling possibly here. Because maybe that's going back to that lovers. Maybe you feel like you haven't been in control of how you've been feeling lately. Maybe it's been, again, maybe just a lot of hard, maybe a lot of work that you've been doing. Maybe you've had to, because the Three of Pentacles is a collaborative energy. And so maybe it's been more kind of like we focused as opposed to just kind of you focused. So that's an interesting energy that's kind of coming through there. All right, but I think that's all I got for you on that one. let's go ahead and get into your next card, which talks about any sort of like immediately pressing affairs. All right, so you got the Five of Wands in reverse here. And this really feels like to me that there's a lot of conflicting energies right now. Maybe, kind of going back maybe to this Chariot, maybe there's something that maybe someone isn't online. It doesn't have to just be your relationship. Maybe this is like a group thing, or like maybe like, it's just like something that's feeling a bit like it's like all these people are trying to, it's like, they're trying to make something happen. They're like, they have a vision of how this thing could work, and we're all going about it a different type of way here. And even just going back to this Lovers here, maybe it's like you felt like you didn't have a choice, but it's just like, if you don't take the reins, and things are just going to be, continue to be in this chaos here, or it's going to be like everyone else is pleased but you in this instance here. So the five of wands sometimes can create this strife, this tension here, this kind of inner turmoil that's happening, a restriction of the energies of the fire here. So yeah, because this is Saturn in Leo. And, Saturn has a way where it's like, if you want your will to be known or will to be done, we got to speak up. Maybe with this Lover's energy here, let people know how you're feeling, especially if you have some sort of conflicting things that are coming up with you or even kind of around you. So that might be something that's coming through there. Maybe if this is like, working with, let's say for example, with like we're dealing with maybe like a death in the family, we're getting any sort of like inheritance things, we got maybe siblings and other family members all trying to figure out what we should do, what would be the option, something along those lines there. So yeah, I think that this would be a time to just like, and it's not like overstepping everyone, but just like maybe asserting yourself a bit more. And this is just like, hey, my opinion matters in this too. This was, so that's just something that's just kind of coming through there with that five of wands there. All right, let's get to your last card here, which talks about the destiny or the karma of the situation. Let's see what's going on there. Interesting. So you got the Star card in reverse here, and with this Star, one, I feel with this that it's like, one is like I'm getting a view of like your vision, and if it doesn't feel like if it feels like your vision has not been realized, or that something that didn't go quite as you hoped here, it's just like thinking about what are some ways, like what are some, maybe thinking about the choices again, maybe back to that Lovers that was made there, maybe where you could have invested a bit more, a bit more involved in a situation here. Or it might even be too, maybe where you were too involved, and then that may have it screwed, and again, apply to your situation here. But I'm even getting with this energy that whatever choices that have been made here, that it's going to take maybe some time to kind of process, to kind of heal here. Just that's just an energy that's coming through there as well. But even kind of again going to that, back to that kind of auspicious for the great personage, for this again, I think for you to kind of find your guiding light. That just because like maybe something wasn't realized in this instant, that doesn't mean that it's necessarily gone, but it just means that Yeah, just like something needs needing to be adjusted possibly here. Yeah, that's interesting. That's all I'm really getting from that star card energy. It's something to meditate on. But let's go ahead and get some advice from Mercury here. There's Big Papa. You got the Wheel of Fortune here, Jupiter. And let's go ahead and switch back over. And with the Wheel of Fortune, things, the wheel, there's, the Wheel of Fortune is that things are turning. Life is going to continue going. We have these different phases in life where we reach this high point, we have this peak, and then things, just like the cycle, they start to wane a little bit. We get to a low point, we rediscover ourselves. The plant falls apart. I had this flower here not too long ago. It had just bloomed. It did this whole thing, and then I literally went to move it a little bit, and all the petals fell off. It was just like poof. It was really, really strange. But that's how life goes sometimes. It's just like we're at this peak bloom, and then poof. And then it goes back into the soil and grows into something else. The cycle never stops. I think with this, that's what this Wheel of Fortune is really kind of getting at here. And I would, I think that there's an invitation here of just like getting in that flow of wherever stage that you're at. And it's just like knowing that if you're at this high point, it's like accumulating as much resources as you can for when things dip again. And they're not like dip like things get bad, but it's just like when the next challenge comes, because once we reach a certain state of fulfillment, of course we're going to want bigger. This is Jupiter we're talking about. But also, too, just know that if you're in the low point, that this is, again, just a natural point of life. And calling on all of the things that you accumulated and learned, tools, relationships, and things that you got from those high points to kind of help you get through this whole point, to push you back up into that wave again. And then it's like, as we start to ride the wave, it gets easier there. And the star card for me, this is Aquarius energy, but the stars, like, you're literally thinking about the stars here, working with the astrology, in a sense, of the astronomy. And it's just like, again, following that sort of like keeping that North Star in mind, never losing that light at the end of this thing. And know that this situation, and that's okay, now a little bit more is coming through with that stars, like, yeah, especially if you're feeling at like a weird point in the cycle, it's knowing that things are going to get better, and that things are, with the Chariot, you got to keep it moving. Not in like we're not processing what we're going through, of course, but it's just that sometimes we got a great pace, and sometimes we're just going at a nice little trot. We're just taking our time. Sometimes we may park, but we're, got to adjust some things, but we get it back moving again. So, and even when we're parking, we're fixing something here, so we got to keep it moving. But, but that's basically what I got for you there. Very, very interesting reading here. But if you like that, if anything resonated with you, give it a thumbs up. And share this if you know somebody. Oh, thumbs up? Nope, that's all right. But also share this if you know somebody who gets some nuggets of wisdom from this. And to subscribe there, you Chariot. Hit that bell button to get notified on all these videos each day. And then let me get your surprise card or cards here. But if you want to get into your flow, get into the sync up with the stars, find out the direction in life, and you want to work with me, down in the description box, I have a link for the services that I have the description for the services that I provide, and a way to get in touch with me to book the services or whatever service that you feel would resonate with you. And yeah, whether that be working with the different transits, whether that's getting to know your natal chart a bit more, whether this is maybe getting a tarot or an I-Ching reading on top of that, whatever that may be looking like for you, whatever kind of guidance you're looking for, definitely check that out. But also, if you want to if you just want to follow the transits and see where the planets are at, in the description box, there's a link for my other channel, Alchemist 8, where I do videos coming out. They actually come out every Mercury day. That's a Wednesday, and I talk about where the planets are at, and some practical ways of working with them, and where to what signs may be more effective with this, and just how to work with the energies. And then also I've been doing this series where I'm talking about different celestial bodies and different signs in different houses. Actually got the moon in Cancer coming up here next. So that is also available there for you. But let's go ahead and get into your surprise card here, which you have the surrender card here. And actually, one moment, I gotta pause real quick. Okay, we're back. But you got the surrender card here. And when we think about surrendering, I don't think it's not about giving up. Surrender is just learning to trust in the process. Trust that greater side of you, that spirit, always has your best interest at heart. Always. Whatever that might be looking like. And especially I find, when we're going through those harsh times, because listen, I got a 12th house sun, I got the nodes on that not so great axis. And there have been some, and not just the stuff that I've gone through, but the stuff that I've seen other people other people go through. And it does get you where, just like, what is this process all about? How can I trust this thing with all this stuff going on there? But the more that I find that you surrender, and it's just like, all right, Spirit, we're gonna do this thing. There's no troubles, like it all just becomes a part of the process here. And so if you're having troubles, maybe surrendering, having troubles trusting in that, there are some very simple, very practical ways of releasing control. I had a really good friend, and I'm just thinking about how intuitive he really is. Another Cancer, but he used to do this thing. I wonder if he still does it. But he used to do this thing. If he had some choices that he had to make and he wasn't sure about, he's got Mercury in Cancer, he'd toss a coin on it. And I was just like, oh yeah, that's how you're gonna do that? But you know what? You'd be surprised. I've had actually a couple instances in the last couple weeks where I've done something like that, and Spirit's spot on. Spirit is spot on, always. That can be a great way of learning how to surrender and to trust. Releasing your powers to something bigger, that kind of Wheel of Fortune energy. Maybe you just pull a couple tarot cards each day. Maybe you ask the I-Ching. Maybe you're tossing some coins, or maybe you're working with the yarrow, whatever that. Maybe you're doing some scrying, whatever that might look like. But that can be a really great way to learn how to surrender, especially if you find someone who really grips the reins really tightly. And then you know what, you don't have to follow that. That's the thing, we always have free will. So you can, if you decide to go against it, then record what happens, see what goes on, and then use that as rational information. So yeah, just something I think to just kind of consider that when we're working with this, because I think surrender sometimes can be, I think it can get a little misconstrued sometimes. It's just like you're not doing anything. It's just like really we're just kind of trusting that intuitive action here. And maybe again with Virgo we're getting, because I find with Virgo energy it was like once we receive that information, then we know what to do, then we can make more sense of it. But it's getting familiar with those structures, and then it's like once you're able to conceptualize and ground that a lot more, then it doesn't feel so, I mean, there's always a magical component to it, but it doesn't. It almost demystifies a little bit. It's just like, oh, it's really that easy. I can just do it like that and just follow. I can trust, like, surrender like that. Oh, bet. And then you're surrendering all the time, and then you get it, and then things just start to, I find, just move along. So yeah, just I think some things to just kind of meditate on there. But until next time, stay mindful out there. Keep eyes on that moon, and I will catch you on the next one. How lovely. On a Jupiter day.